Good morning. I'm Berks County Commissioner Christian Leinbach, and I want to welcome you to our operations meeting for June the 10th. We are in person and also broadcasting via Microsoft Teams live event. At this time, I'll recognize Barbie Lopez, Executive Assistant to Commissioner Rivera, to read the public comment notice.
Thank you, Commissioner Leinbach. Public comment will be accepted in person and through the Q&A function. Please include your first name, last name, and municipality for all comments. Any comment without name and municipality will not be considered. Each citizen can submit one comment. Comment length is dictated by limitations of the platform being used, Teams Q&A. In-person comments will be accepted first, followed by comments submitted virtually. The meeting comment period is limited to a total of 30 minutes, including both in-person and virtual comments. This time period may be extended at the discretion of the board. Please be concise. Comments that are germane to county business will be read during the meeting and should not be considered to be interactive dialogue with the commissioners. The county solicitor shall be the final arbiter of whether a comment is germane and should be read. Any commissioner response to public comment will be done at the discretion of the commissioners.
Thank you very much, Barbie. Are there any additions or corrections for the May 27th meeting minutes? Hearing none, the minutes will stand approved as presented. We do not have any public comment in person or online on agenda items, so we will move to the single item on our agenda today, and that comes from Pam Mennett. She's our Director of Community and Economic Development. She's presenting a housing study, which is part of Imagine Berks. As she's coming up, just will note this from an economic standpoint is one of the more persistent and problematic economic challenges that we've been facing as a county. It's an issue nationwide, but it is a significant issue here in the county, and it impacts all types and all levels of pricing of housing. So with that, Pam Mennett.
Commissioner, you really teed me up well.
Right.
So as I was going through my files a few months ago, Ken Pick, who is the director of our county redevelopment authority, and I were chatting, and I said, Ken, you're never going to guess what I found in my files. And this is a long-range strategic plan from the Berks Community Housing Council, of which Ken and I co-facilitated, and this is from 1994. So it's been a bit that we've really focused on housing as a community and putting together a strategy. So housing is the area that touches us all in a very tangible way. And I would ask if there's anyone here who hasn't experienced themselves or know a family member or friend who has faced a housing challenge in the past few years, whether it is saving money for the down payment, finding a home to purchase, losing out on a house because there was a bidding war and the house sold for much more than the original asking price, or locating an affordable and desirable rental option. As we know, not all of these and other housing challenges are reflective of lower incomes. They truly cross all income sectors. Our adult children are finding it hard to find housing options in the county, and businesses are having trouble attracting and retaining workers due to the price and availability of housing. The employment gains in the county have bolstered the demand for housing here in the county. The gains in employment with healthcare and manufacturing are among the industries paying higher average wages and increasing the demand also for higher value housing. That lack makes it more difficult to retain and attract those workers. And the housing challenges related to talent attraction and retention are actually also part of the Thomas P. Miller study currently underway by our Workforce Development Board, who are studying our post-pandemic workforce in the county. In a few minutes, I'll talk about the crosswalk that we're doing between housing prices and opportunity job wages. Our seniors and single-person households are increasing, and there appears to be a growing and a necessary desire for smaller homes that are affordable for people who are living alone or on a fixed income. There's not enough units to meet the general demand, and our existing homes do not match our resident needs due to size, price, design, location, or accessibility issues. In the NACO Leadership Academy, we learned from Marshall Goldsmith, what got you here won't get you there. And in fact, he wrote an entire book about it.
I'm reading it right now. Seriously.
Well, that phrase can certainly be applied to housing. And I want to share some data points with you that led us to the point of recommending the housing study. We have found that Berks County is not replacing or upgrading its housing stock, and much of it is significantly outdated. There is the misalignment of housing stock with our household formations and employment. There's a need for a zoning and process approval environment that supports property's intended use and sends a message to developers and investors that we may be open to partnering with them. Through smart growth, we know that prioritizing specific areas for development will focus our investment in transportation and utility infrastructure to limit the impact on agricultural land. We need to ensure that we're supporting policy and innovation regulations that assist our municipalities in updating their policies, regulations, and ordinances. And engagement with municipalities, nonprofits, and business is critical. We also need housing conversations that are truly grounded in data. And the Planning Commission staff has met and continues to meet with municipal officials, and the topic of housing comes up, and it isn't always well received. We have faced challenging and emotional conversations with municipalities and school districts about housing. So we need to understand if previous studies and national data is truly reflective of our reality here in Berks County. And it raises important land planning policy considerations in our communities, and in assessing the fiscal burdens of various forms of land development, something that we will be working on as part of the comprehensive plan. Housing that is properly located and designed and part of a land use strategy supports our smart growth objectives, provides an affordable source of housing, serves a changing demographic, and preserves the fiscal soundness of our community. So, a housing study. You know that we don't let these studies sit on the shelf, and in the past 3 years, we adopted and are actively implementing Imagine Berks, the Greenway Park and Recreation Plan, and our most recently adopted plan, Growing Berks, our Agriculture Economic Impact Study. So in addition to helping guide and prioritize our strategies and resources, the implementation of these plans are effectively bringing partners together, and we believe that a focus on housing will do the same thing. So in Imagine Berks, we knew that we had to put together some strategy. It was one of our focus areas. We put together strategy action steps. We put together what our economic indicators would be and what our metrics would be. We actually were able to determine that in 2021, which was when the plan was underway and being produced, we identified 5,612 units of underproduction in housing. That number is now 6,607 units of underproduction in Berks County. And what that relates to is serving our existing population and growing population, and also serving the projected growth of our population for the next 5 years. So the question also becomes, do we have housing that is accessible in terms of availability as opposed to what actually our residents can afford? So one of the things that we've been taking a look at is what's truly in our housing development pipeline that comes through our County Planning Commission. So the Planning Commission has produced a report, and in fact, we'll be providing it to the Planning Commission tomorrow, a very simple one-pager that really quantifies what we have reviewed in the past 5 years. But there are 2 areas of review. The residential units that have been reviewed and are going through the approval process with local municipalities. And we're seeing that there's actually, that number shows 1866 through 2024. We're actually a little over 2,000 units now. 60% of those residential reviews, over 1,000 units, were apartments. Then there are those units that have gone through the approval process and come to us for endorsement, which is they're about to be recorded. And actually, at that point, it's a recorded plan and most likely is moving forward. Some of the reviewed plans obviously do not move forward. So at this point, and year to date in 2025, so from 2021 to year to date 2025, 3,832 units have been endorsed and or recorded that we have gone through the Planning Commission. The question really becomes, is what's coming through the pipeline matching our housing needs and wants? So if we take a look at some of our existing housing stock, and we looked at it from the viewpoint of what do we have in terms of existing housing and where is our new construction? So there's only 2.6 of all the units in Berks County that have been built since 2010 or later. And 25% of all of the housing units in Berks County were built prior to 1939. So when we're considering the higher end housing and bringing it to Berks County, our proximity to Philly metro area tends to keep the construction prices higher, while the lower household incomes here really prevent builders from extracting the same value, which discourages new development. One of the things that we specifically heard from developers in our area is that if they build in an adjacent county closer to the Philadelphia suburbs, they can get substantially more in a for sale price than they can here in Berks County.
I think that also applies to Lancaster County.
Yeah.
Lancaster, it has many more housing units, new housing units than we do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So our current local planning and zoning hasn't allowed for the development of housing that actually matches, as I've referenced, our new household formation patterns and our demand that could be condos and attached developments, not just single family detached homes. So this is something that we're looking at. And the example that I have on the screen is that a median price new construction home, and this is a home in the Boyertown area, the sales price is $724,000. It's 1,900 square feet, which is a smaller footprint than we may think of for some traditional single family detached homes. And on the left, you see an existing home, median price being the sale price here for this particular house, which happens to be in Birdsboro, is $284,900. And that house is 1,400 square feet. What I'm going to talk to you about now is what you could actually afford if you were earning an opportunity job as we calculated and Imagine Berks. So keep in mind these two housing prices, and these are just two examples.
It's the next page.
So if we take a look at for sale housing in Berks, we know that an opportunity job, which when we adopted Imagine Berks, that was $63,000. And what an opportunity job represents is a job that provides a living wage with benefits that a household must earn before taxes to support a family of three with 2 adults and a child, wherein 1 adult is working. So that's how we calculate an opportunity job. That number is now $80,246. That's about a little over $38 per hour. So first we took a look at opportunity job careers because we wanted to see how our growing job market was actually relating to increasing housing prices. So this is probably one of those things that proves to us that this is not just a matter of housing, lack of housing choice due to specifically related to income. So using our software packages and Tremor Analytics, we took a look at some examples. Elementary and middle school teachers, $78,000. Electricians, $77,000. First line supervisors of maintenance operations are at 82,000, police 87, health information 76, registered nurses at 96. So you're going to see how some of these salaries are very close to what you would have to earn as an opportunity wage. But when you do the mortgage calculation, what you can afford is about $280,000, a home that costs about $280,000. And the median sales price of a home in Berks County is right now $285,000. So an individual would be able to afford their mortgage with the monthly payments if it was a 7.5% interest rate. So that's how we're working on this calculation right now.
So Pam, $80,000 salary, you can afford a $280,000 house. That's what you're saying. Okay.
And part of what we look at is also ensuring that households are not cost burdened. So you would be considered cost burdened if you pay more than 30% of your gross income for housing and housing related expense.
And if we're really honest, 30% is pushing it.
Yeah.
If you look personally, 30%, if you're spending that much, something goes a little awry, you can be in financial trouble.
Also, in taking a look at, so we've talked about there are rental units that are being created. So over 60% of what we've seen in the reviewed pipeline are apartments. So those apartments are really running quite a range. One bedroom, one bath with an opportunity wage. It's about $1,700 to $1,900 a month. Those are the average prices for a one bedroom, one bath. At $2,000 a month, a two bedroom, 1.5 bath apartment is really close to the top range of the housing budget for someone who is earning an opportunity wage. Now, there have also been some housing redevelopments. We've had some successes and examples of what we've really tried to promote in Imagine Berks, which is redevelopment within our boroughs. So I think most of you are familiar with the former Fleetwood Auto Body building located in the borough of Fleetwood. And the creation there were apartment units that are a much smaller footprint than what we have traditionally seen. But footprints between 425 and 650 square feet. The entry price for the 425 square is $1,100 a month. Those units are completely occupied, but also they're serving also the intent of providing housing near employment centers. So as you know, Fleetwood being in very close proximity, not only to East Penn, but certainly Giorgio and all of its affiliated companies, those units were leased up and many of them were pre-leased before the project was completed.
I've toured that about 4 weeks ago. They're actually pretty impressive, and they're building additional units in that building. The ones that are complete are occupied. Actually, I was pretty impressed. I expected to feel confined, but because of the high ceilings and the design, they're beautiful.
So these are market rate. This was a market rate redevelopment, adaptive reuse. Also underway, as commissioners, you're aware, is at 6th and Chestnut, the project by HDC Mid-Atlantic. It's the cornerstone project. That project's going to house seniors in 46 apartments. There'll be 39 one bedrooms, 7 two bedrooms. The project cost is $21 million in order to complete that renovation. So a lot of soft costs involved in that, and it involves a lot of layers of financing. And it will take probably 2 to 3 years just in putting the packages together until renovations can actually start. But providing an adaptive reuse of 46 apartments certainly meets a need for our seniors, but it is only one piece of the puzzle. We also, as you are very familiar with, the whole home repair that was administered and as actually still being administered by our County Redevelopment Authority. They're closing out some projects. At this point, there's over 71 projects completed, and this number is dynamic, and there are still 23 projects in progress. So that represents a little over $2.4 million. And conversations are currently underway to see if a whole home repair type program can be stood up that is not income constrained by federal or state funds, to see if we can help people age in place, which would help our seniors, and also help some of our folks if they got into a starter home and were faced with major repairs right out of the gate. So how do we move forward from here? Well, one of the things that we've identified is that there are a lot of partners in the housing field, and this slide just represents a few of them, most all of whom we know. So we know about Habitat, we know about NHS, Opportunity House, our County Housing Authority and our Reading Housing Authority are doing just incredible things in order to provide support to the residents that are there so that they can become economically mobile and ultimately move out of public housing and into some other housing choices that are available. There's a lot going on, but I can't tell you right now that we can quantify everything that is underway. So we're hoping to put together the scope of work for a housing and market needs assessment that is currently underway. And those conversations with all of these partners are currently taking place to make sure that we can make it as comprehensive as we can. The intent of that study is to provide our critical, detailed, empirical information about the inventory, housing resources, supportive services, opportunities for partnerships and direction. So identified as a focus area in Imagine Berks and a component piece of our new comprehensive plan that's currently underway. And as you know, the comprehensive plan plays a very important role in our future land use that will also dictate both policy, best practices, and ordinance. So we will incorporate the most up-to-date data and information from the housing study into the comp plan and into Imagine Berks. The information will affect our strategies, action steps, and policies related to housing to meet the goal that was identified in the Imagine Berks plan, which is addressing the county's need for new housing and redeveloped housing that is accessible and attainable, all while considering smart growth and continuing our commitment to agriculture, open space, and a diverse economic landscape for Berks County. So commissioners, I would just ask if you have any questions or dialogue.
Question, Home Builders Association. I was with them probably 3 weeks ago and talked to them about this issue. They're very interested in being involved. Is that someone that you can possibly bring in to
Absolutely.
the group? I mean, they've seen the impact. I would say around 2000, they had roughly 800 members, just very, very vibrant organization. And today they're less than 150 members. They struggle with a lot of the municipal thinking that is largely, I don't want to say largely, there's somewhat of an anti-development sentiment in Berks County, and they point to Lancaster. Lancaster has I believe around 120,000 preserved acres. There's far more new housing construction and tract housing development construction in Lancaster than we've seen here probably since 2008. When the home market collapsed. A lot of the tracts that were either partially built or in planning have been not abandoned, but sold off and not developed. It's people remember Greth Holmes. He stayed afloat, but sold quite a few of those, and has since retired. Berks Homes is based in Berks, but they're building primarily outside of Berks County,
Right.
in surrounding counties. It's one of the conundrums in the housing challenge, and it actually is more of a problem outside the urban and even immediate Greater Reading area. Any thoughts?
Yes, to all of the above, Commissioner. And this is, so I have also started outreach to some of my fellow department heads here at the county, trying to understand also the role that aging plays in our supportive housing, how MHDD plays into that, how veterans plays into that, trying to understand also some of the resources that come in for support for those who need to move to a permanent housing situation. And yesterday, Commissioner Lineback, I did share with you, I had not previously been through the Lighthouse over at the Hope Rescue Mission, which is housing women and children. And the important part is to find pathways for folks to move out of supportive housing and into a housing situation. They're taking a look at the creation of permanent housing, but it's going to be permanent housing that will require some type of supportive service. So as we talk about all of that end of the spectrum and how we all need to begin to quantify services that are available so these folks can be successful in their housing situations, we're also understanding that as we continue to grow the occupations here that pay these higher wages, that there's the demand for the high value housing as well. And if high value housing is not available and they buy down, and I use that word
It's just been
loosely,
happening.
which happens, all of those folks who have saved and saved to get to a starter home, whose family may be growing, or they have a situation where they're bringing in a parent or in-laws or adult children that need to move to that larger mid-value house, it's not available to them to do that. So it has also caused us to start talking to municipalities about their regulations around
Mhm.
accessory dwelling units. So the topic of housing becomes so broad and so deep, and we feel that we have to dig in a little more. Sorry, that was a very long answer, Commissioner.
Yeah, so I mean, there's a lot of issues going around housing. Initially, you had a question, who's gone through XYZ, and I see it every day, people going through those issues. When you look at, especially in the city, if you look 5, 7 years ago, you could get a house for 60, 70, $80,000. Not anymore. Now you're looking at 170, 180, even more than that. Properties have, if you look at the county, and I don't know the exact numbers, but in the last 5 years, if properties of the county have gone up this way, the city numbers have gone up this way in value. So it makes it a lot harder even for people within the city to get affordable housing. And that what that leads to is also we're looking at rental. Rental numbers have gone up because now you're not going to rent for $700 a house that you're paying $160,000 for versus what you maybe paid 5 years ago for $60,000. So that's also pushing up rental prices as well, which is an issue. And we've seen a lot more first-time homelessness because of that, because of the lack of affordable housing, but also the lack of affordable rental units as well. So that's something that needs to be looked at. Also, what is what's the answer here? No one knows, but something we need to start working on. And I want to push this forward because we look at, yes, this organization is doing this one is doing that, but there's really haven't brought in all of them together to say, okay, what are all the organizations as a county, what are they doing? What are the needs in the county? What needs are being met? What needs aren't being met? And who can step in for those needs? The other thing which I feel is important, an important part of the conversation is talking with developers within Berks County and saying, well, why aren't you developing more? And talking with developers from surrounding counties and saying, well, why are you developing in Lancaster and Montgomery here and you're not coming into Berks County? Having that conversation, is there anything that we can do as county government to help those developers come into Berks County and develop in Berks County? But there's a lot that needs to be looked into and taken account of. Now, one thing that is good, will it last? I don't know. But if you look about 2 months ago, the number of active and coming soon single-family homes in Berks County was around 320 something, 330 something. This past week, it's been in the low to mid 400. So I think it was 420, 430, even up to 440 this past week. So that's good, but it's still it's still a seller's market. It's still a low inventory, normal market or a neutral market in Berks County is about 1,000 homes on the MLS. So we're not even halfway there as to what that should be. Again, last year the numbers went up, then came back down. So I'm not sure if it's that the market is changing or the numbers will actually go back down again because of whatever it may be. But definitely something that needs to be looked at and worked on, and also reach out to the task force that the governor had in place as well around housing, see where they're at, what information they've gotten, what plans they have, and see how we can incorporate that here in Berks County as well.
The only thing I would add, I mean, I know there's a lot of challenges. It's not just a Berks County issue. Housing affects the state and nationally. It's an issue. I see all the different organizations that are involved. I also saw that Habitat and Neighborhood Housing Services just did a presentation to City Council a few days ago. And as Commissioner Rivera said, the state has an initiative. How challenging is it to put all of that together and actually come up with a plan that says, okay, this is what we can, this is what Berks County needs to do. Then we can, have sort of something to go to maybe the developers and say, we can do this, we can do that. How challenging is that?
Very challenging.
Very challenging.
So So I've joked with Ken Pick that it's time to get the gang back together. So that when I referenced that housing strategy, that community housing council met monthly. And there was a sense that we knew what everyone was doing and where the holes were that we needed to fill. And we don't have that sense right now. So this will mean pulling together not only the nonprofits who are involved in housing, our housing authorities, it will involve bringing in the private developers, the home builders, the Realtors Association, so that we all start also coming from a place of good data. Because when we enter conversations, ultimately it can devolve very quickly into very emotional and anecdotal conversations, especially with our school districts and our municipalities who would welcome housing have been challenged by things like an apartment community may go into place, a market rate community, and all they think about are the kids that come out of those units. The national studies have shown that there are more kids in lower density developments where there's 4 and 5 bedroom homes coming into the school system than there are in 2-bedroom apartments that are market rate, because typically that's not a family's first choice of where to move. You have a lot of single and unrelated adults living together. And so when we talk about those changing housing formations, that's really a question of, we need to understand how our housing development and pipeline is really reflecting that. So yes, very challenging. We think we're up to it, but it will require bringing a lot of folks to the table that haven't sat at the same table for a long time.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Okay. Thank you
you.
very much, Pam.
Thanks, Pam.
Important issue, and keep us posted on your progress. Are there any more public comments? Just general public comments? Nothing online? That brings us to the end of the agenda.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Meeting is adjourned.